You're nothing but an ugly college dropout. Don't you dare show your face at this family again." Those were my mother's last words before she slammed the door in my face. 5 years later, I walked into my sister's graduation party uninvited. When my mother saw me standing there talking to the dean about a 6-figure contract, her face went white. You won't believe what happened next. Before we continue, please hit that subscribe button. This story gets absolutely wild, and you need to hear every single detail. My name is Natalie, and I'm 27 years old now. Back then, I was 22, and I was the family embarrassment, the one who didn't measure up, the one who was too plain, too ordinary, too much of a failure to deserve their love or support. My sister Vanessa, on the other hand, was everything I wasn't. Beautiful, smart, driven, and most importantly, their golden child. Growing up in Nashville, Tennessee, I learned early that love in my family was conditional. My parents, both successful business owners, had specific expectations for their daughters. We were supposed to be beautiful, accomplished, and perfect representations of their status. Vanessa fit that mold effortlessly. I did not. I remember the exact moment when everything fell apart. I was in my 3rd year at college studying graphic design. I loved it. Creating art, working with colors and shapes, bringing ideas to life on the screen. But my parents hated it. They wanted me to study business or law, something prestigious that they could brag about at their country club dinners. "Graphic design is for people who can't do real work," my father said when I told him about my major. "You're wasting our money on this nonsense." My mother was worse. She never missed an opportunity to compare me to Vanessa, who was studying pre-med at the time. "Your sister is going to be a doctor. What are you going to be? Someone who makes pretty pictures?" The criticism wore me down. Every phone call home became an interrogation. Every visit turned into a lecture about my choices, my appearance, my future. They made it clear that I was a disappointment. When I started struggling with depression and anxiety, they told me to stop being dramatic. When my grades slipped, they threatened to cut me off financially. I tried to push through, but the pressure became unbearable. My mental health deteriorated. I stopped going to classes. I stopped eating properly. I stopped believing I was worth anything at all. And then one particularly dark night, I made the decision to leave college. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't see any other way forward. When I told my parents, the explosion was immediate. My mother screamed at me for hours about how I had embarrassed them, how I was throwing my life away, how I was too stupid to see what a mistake I was making. My father just looked at me with disgust and said I was no longer his daughter. Vanessa stood in the doorway watching the whole thing with a smirk on her face. She had always enjoyed seeing me fail. It made her look better by comparison. They gave me 1 week to pack my things and leave. No financial support. No place to stay, no family to fall back on. I was completely on my own, and I was terrified. I ended up couch surfing at friends' apartments for a few months, working whatever jobs I could find to survive. Waitressing, retail, cleaning offices at night, anything to keep myself afloat. I felt like I had hit rock bottom and there was no way back up. But something changed in me during those dark months. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was just pure stubbornness. But I decided that I wasn't going to let them define me anymore. I wasn't going to accept their version of who I was supposed to be. I took every dollar I earned and saved it. I taught myself advanced design software using free tutorials online. I built a portfolio of work in every spare moment I had. I reached out to small businesses and offered to design their logos and websites for cheap, just to build experience. And slowly, very slowly, I started to build something. It wasn't easy. There were nights I ate ramen for every meal. There were months I couldn't afford heat in my tiny apartment. There were moments I almost gave up and went crawling back to my parents, ready to accept whatever conditions they'd impose. But I didn't. I kept going. After 6 months of freelancing, I landed my first real client, a small tech startup that needed complete branding. The pay was decent, and more importantly, they loved my work. That led to referrals, more clients, better projects, higher pay. Within a year, I had enough steady work to rent a proper apartment. Within 2 years, I hired my first employee and officially registered my business as an agency. Within 3 years, I had a team of 5 and was working with mid-sized companies. By year 4, I was landing contracts with major corporations. My little design agency had grown into something substantial, something successful, something that proved my parents wrong about everything they'd said about me. And I had done it all without them. But here's the thing about being cut off from your family. Part of you never stops wanting their approval, even when you know you shouldn't care anymore. Part of you keeps that door cracked open, hoping maybe someday they'll see what you've become and realize they were wrong. I kept tabs on them through social media. watched from a distance as they continued their perfect lives without me. Vanessa graduated from undergrad with honors, started medical school, continued being their golden child. They never mentioned me, never posted about having another daughter. It was like I'd been erased from their family history completely, which is why what I overheard at a coffee shop 5 months ago hit me so hard. I was working on my laptop at a Starbucks near downtown Nashville when I heard a familiar voice. My mother. She was having coffee with some of her country club friends, loud enough that half the shop could hear. "We're just so proud of both our daughters," she was saying. Vanessa is in her final year of medical school, and Natalie is doing incredibly well with her design business overseas. She's based in London now, working with major international clients. I froze. What was she talking about? I wasn't overseas. I lived 15 minutes from where she was sitting. "Oh, I didn't know you had another daughter," one of the women said. "I'd love to meet her sometime." "She's very busy with work," my mother replied smoothly. "But yes, we're very fortunate. Both girls are so successful. We made sure they had every advantage, and they've really made us proud." I sat there stunned. They had cut me off, disowned me, called me an ugly failure. And now they were lying to their friends, pretending they were supportive parents, using my real success to make themselves look good. The audacity was breathtaking. That's when I started planning. I knew Vanessa's medical school graduation was coming up in a few months. I knew there would be a big celebration. My parents would spare no expense for their golden child. And I knew exactly how I was going to make my presence known. I reached out to an old college friend named Ryan who worked in the medical field. Turns out he'd stayed in touch with Professor Mitchell, one of my favorite teachers from my college days before I dropped out. Professor Mitchell now taught at the same medical school where Vanessa was finishing her degree. "Ryan, I need a favor," I told him. "A big one." "Tell me what you need," he said. I explained my situation. Explained what my family had done. Explained that I wanted to attend Vanessa's graduation party, not to cause chaos, but to show them exactly what I'd become despite them. Ryan didn't hesitate. "I can get you in as my +1, and I think Professor Mitchell would be very interested in meeting you again, especially since he's on the committee considering design agencies for a major medical school branding project." My heart started racing. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. Your portfolio is better than anyone else we've looked at. If you're interested, I can arrange a meeting." "I'm very interested." The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. I met with Professor Mitchell and the medical school's dean, Dr. Bennett. They reviewed my agency's work, asked questions about our process and capabilities, and seemed genuinely impressed. By the time Vanessa's graduation party arrived, I had a preliminary offer on the table for a contract worth over $200,000. All that was left was final negotiations and paperwork. The party was held at an upscale venue overlooking the city. I arrived with Ryan, dressed in a designer outfit that I'd actually been able to afford because of my success. My hair was professionally styled. My confidence was real, not faked. I looked nothing like the broken 22-year-old they'd thrown out 5 years ago. We walked into the reception area, and I felt my stomach clench despite my preparation. This was it. The moment I'd been both anticipating and dreading. The space was beautiful. String lights, elegant decorations, tables full of expensive catering. My parents had clearly spent a fortune, just as I'd expected. I saw my mother first, across the room talking to a group of women. She was wearing a champagne-colored dress, holding a glass of wine, laughing at something someone said. She looked exactly the same, poised, put together, completely in control. My father stood near the bar talking to several men in expensive suits, probably other business owners or country club members. His domain, his people. And then I saw Vanessa. She was in the center of it all, of course, wearing a white dress like she was the bride at a wedding instead of a medical school graduate, soaking up attention and congratulations from everyone around her. She looked beautiful and successful and exactly like what my parents had always wanted. For a moment, doubt crept in. Maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I should just leave and continue building my life without ever confronting them. But then Ryan put his hand on my shoulder. "You've got this," he said quietly. "Remember why you came." He was right. I hadn't come here to hide or to run away again. I'd come here to show them exactly what they'd thrown away. We moved further into the party. Several people glanced at me, but no one seemed to recognize me. 5 years was a long time. I'd been 22 when they last saw me, young and broken. Now I was 27, polished and confident. I made my way to the bar and ordered a glass of wine. As I waited, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Natalie, is that you?" I turned to find Professor Mitchell, one of my favorite teachers from college. He taught in the arts department, one of the few people who had encouraged my design work before I dropped out. He looked older now, more gray in his hair, but his kind eyes were the same. Professor Mitchell, I said, genuinely surprised. What are you doing here? I teach at the medical school now, he explained. Vanessa was one of my students. Brilliant girl, very driven. He paused, studying my face. I heard you left school. I always wondered what happened to you. You had such talent. His words hit me harder than I expected. Here was someone who had believed in me, who had seen potential in my work, and I had disappeared without explanation. I had some personal issues, I said carefully. But I'm doing well now. I own my own design agency. His face lit up. Really? That's wonderful. I always knew you had it in you. Your work was always exceptional. Even back then, we talked for a few more minutes, catching up on the years that had passed. He seemed genuinely happy to see me doing well, which was more than I could say for most people in this room. As our conversation ended, Professor Mitchell excused himself to talk to other guests. I watched him go, feeling both grateful for his kindness and acutely aware of how isolated I felt in this crowd of people who were supposed to be my family and friends. I moved through the party like a ghost. People looked at me, their eyes passing over my face without recognition. They didn't see the connection between the successful woman in front of them and the broken girl they'd last seen 5 years ago. I found myself near the dessert table when I heard my mother's voice. She was talking to a group of women, all of them dressed in designer clothes, all of them wearing the same practiced smile. We're just so proud of Vanessa, my mother was saying. Medical school was challenging, but she never gave up. She's always been so determined, so focused, unlike some people. The way she said those last words made it clear she was talking about me. Even though she didn't say my name, even though she thought I wasn't here, she was still using me as the cautionary tale. The failure, the disappointment. I felt anger flare up in my chest, hot and sharp. Yes, we're very fortunate, my father chimed in, joining the conversation. Both of our daughters have done so well. Vanessa is going to be a doctor, and our eldest is very successful in business. I froze. What was he talking about? They had disowned me. They had told me I was nothing, and now they were lying to their friends, pretending everything was fine, pretending they were proud of me. One of the women in the group asked, "Oh, I didn't know you had another daughter. Where is she? I'd love to meet her." My mother's smile became strained. She couldn't make it tonight. Work commitments. You know how it is. The lie was so casual, so practiced, that I wondered how long they had been telling it. How many times had they pretended I was still part of the family, still part of their perfect image, when in reality they had thrown me away like garbage. I wanted to march over there and expose them right then and there. I wanted to announce to everyone that I was the daughter they were lying about, that they had cut me off and abandoned me, that their perfect family was a facade. But something stopped me. Maybe it was self-preservation, maybe it was strategy, or maybe I just wanted to see how far their lies went before I revealed the truth. I decided to observe more, to gather information, to understand exactly what story they had been selling to their social circle. Over the next hour, I heard my parents tell 3 different versions of my fictional life. In one version, I was working overseas in London. In another, I was traveling for business in Asia. In a third, I was so busy with my thriving company that I barely had time to visit. All of it was lies. All of it designed to make them look like supportive parents of 2 successful daughters. The anger I felt transformed into something colder, more calculated. They wanted to use my success to boost their reputation? Fine. But they were going to face the truth first. That's when I saw Professor Mitchell talking to Dr. Bennett, the dean of the medical school. They were standing near a quiet corner, and I knew this was my moment. I walked over, Ryan beside me for support. "Professor Mitchell, Dr. Bennett," I said, professional and composed. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," Dr. Bennett said warmly. "Professor Mitchell was just telling me about your agency. I understand we have a meeting scheduled next week to finalize the branding project?" "That's correct. I'm very excited about the opportunity." "As am I. Your portfolio is impressive." The board was unanimous in their decision to move forward with your firm. We continued discussing the project, the scope of work, the timeline, the contract details. It was a real business conversation, professional and substantial. And it was happening 20 feet away from my parents, who had no idea I was even at this party. That's when my mother's voice cut through our conversation. "Dean Bennett," she called out as she approached. "I wanted to introduce you to some of our closest family friends." She stopped short when she reached us, her eyes finally landing on me. For a second, I saw a flicker of recognition, then confusion, then something that looked like panic. "Natalie," she whispered, the color draining from her face. "Hello, Mother," I said calmly. "Lovely party, though I notice I wasn't invited." My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She looked at Dr. Bennett and Professor Mitchell, clearly trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. "What are you doing here?" she finally managed to ask, her voice tight. I was invited by a friend, I said, though I've been here for over an hour now, and this is the first time anyone in my family has recognized me. Interesting, isn't it? My mother's eyes darted around nervously. People nearby were starting to notice the tension. We should discuss this privately, she said, reaching for my arm. I stepped back, avoiding her touch. Why? You've been discussing me publicly all evening, telling everyone how proud you are of me, how successful I am, how I'm overseas working on my thriving business. Might as well keep it public, don't you think? You don't understand, my mother hissed, her pleasant facade cracking. We were trying to protect the family. Protect the family? I repeated, loudly enough that several people turned to look. Is that what you call disowning your daughter? Abandoning her when she was struggling with her mental health? Kicking her out with nowhere to go? You made your choice when you dropped out, my mother said defensively. You threw away everything we gave you. What you gave me? I felt my anger rising. You gave me criticism, comparison, and conditional love. And when I couldn't handle the pressure anymore, you threw me away like I was nothing. My father appeared then, drawn by the commotion. When he saw me standing there, his face went through the same progression of emotions. Recognition, confusion, panic. Natalie, he said, his voice carefully controlled. This isn't the time or place for this discussion. Really? Because you seem to have plenty to say about me in your speeches. All those lies about how proud you are, about my successful overseas business, about family bonds and support. Should we tell everyone the truth, Dad? Should we tell them you haven't spoken to me in 5 years? That you told me I was no longer your daughter? People were definitely watching now. The conversations around us had died down as guests turned to see what was happening. I saw Vanessa pushing through the crowd, her face pale with alarm. Natalie, please, my father said, trying to maintain his composure. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene? I laughed bitterly. You've been making up an entire fictional life for me. You've been using my real success, which you know nothing about, to make yourselves look like supportive parents, and now you're upset that I'm calling you out on it? Vanessa reached us, her eyes wide. What's going on? I turned to her. Oh, Vanessa, congratulations on graduating medical school. I'm sorry I couldn't be there for you these past 5 years. Oh wait, that's right. I wasn't invited to be part of your life because Mom and Dad decided I wasn't worth keeping around. That's not fair, Vanessa started, but I cut her off. Not fair? You stood there and watched them throw me out. You enjoyed it. Don't pretend you didn't. Dr. Bennett cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable but trying to remain professional. Perhaps we should all take a moment to calm down. With respect, Dr. Bennett, I said, turning to him. My family situation has nothing to do with my professional capabilities. I understand this is awkward, but they've been lying about me for years, and I'm simply setting the record straight. Professor Mitchell spoke up then. With respect, Dr. Bennett, Natalie's family situation has nothing to do with her professional capabilities. I taught her in college before she left. Her work was exceptional then, and from what she's told me, she's only improved since. Punishing her professionally because her family is dysfunctional would be grossly unfair. Dr. Bennett considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're right, of course. Personal matters shouldn't affect professional opportunities. Natalie, I'll be in touch next week as planned. What your family has done is between you and them. Your work speaks for itself. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. I saw my mother heading in our direction, bringing someone with her, probably to introduce to the dean. Dean Bennett, my mother called out. I wanted to introduce you to some of our closest family friends. She stopped short, her eyes landing on me again. Actually, I said, my voice steady, I think it's time for full transparency. Dr. Bennett, these are my parents, the ones who have been claiming to be so proud of my success, the ones who actually cut me off 5 years ago when I dropped out of college due to mental health issues they refused to acknowledge, the ones who have been telling everyone tonight that I'm overseas when I actually live 15 minutes from here. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face went white. My father's jaw clenched. Vanessa looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. And me? I stood there, finally speaking my truth after 5 years of silence. I built my agency from nothing, I continued. I worked 3 jobs while sleeping on friends' couches. I taught myself advanced skills using free online tutorials. I built my client base one small project at a time. And I did it all without any support from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. I turned to look at my parents directly. You don't get to take credit for my success. You don't get to use my achievements to make yourselves look good. You gave up the right to be proud of me when you threw me out like garbage. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but I felt no sympathy. These were performative tears, designed to make her look like the victim in front of all these witnesses. Natalie, please, she said. We made mistakes. But we're still your parents. You stopped being my parents 5 years ago when you told me I was nothing. When you called me an ugly college dropout who would never amount to anything, when you slammed the door in my face and told me never to come back. I never said that, my mother protested weakly. You did. Those were your exact words. And I've spent 5 years proving you wrong. Vanessa finally found her voice. This is my graduation party. You're ruining it. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw what I'd always suspected. She wasn't upset about the confrontation. She was upset that for once in her life, she wasn't the center of attention. Your graduation party, I said slowly, that our parents are throwing to celebrate you becoming a doctor. The same career path they praised while mocking mine. The same achievement they're using to show everyone what a successful daughter looks like, while pretending their other daughter, the one they threw away, is thriving overseas. But I'm not overseas, Vanessa. I'm right here. I've been right here for 5 years, building something real, while you've been living off their money and their approval. That's not true, she said defensively. I worked hard for this. I don't doubt that you worked hard, but you worked hard with a safety net. You worked hard knowing that if you failed, they'd catch you. I worked hard knowing that if I failed, I'd be homeless. There's a difference. The crowd around us had grown larger. People were pulling out their phones. I knew this would be all over social media by morning. Good. Let everyone see the truth. My father tried one more time to regain control of the situation. I think we should continue this conversation somewhere private. No, I said firmly. You've controlled the narrative for 5 years. You've told everyone that you're proud of me, that you support me, that you're good parents. But the truth is, you abandoned your daughter when she needed you most. You threw her out with nothing. And now you're trying to take credit for her success. I turned to address the crowd directly. My name is Natalie. I'm the daughter my parents have been lying about all evening. 5 years ago, they disowned me for dropping out of college. I was struggling with depression and anxiety, and instead of helping me, they cut me off completely. I've spent the last 5 years building a successful design agency from nothing, and next week, I'll be signing a contract with this medical school for over $200,000. All without any help from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. The silence was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Professor Mitchell started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. Dr. Bennett joined him, then Ryan. Then, one by one, other people in the crowd began applauding. My parents stood there frozen, their perfect facade shattered, their lies exposed, their reputation crumbling in real time. Vanessa looked at me with something that might have been respect or might have been hatred. I couldn't tell, and I realized I didn't care. I had said what I came to say. I had exposed the truth, and I had done it all while maintaining my professional composure and securing my business contract. That's when things took an interesting turn. Ryan, who had been standing quietly beside me this whole time, pulled out his phone. Natalie, he said quietly, I think you need to hear this. He played a recording. It was Vanessa's voice, talking to my mother. The conversation must have been from earlier in the evening, before I arrived. Mom, what if Natalie actually shows up? Vanessa was saying. What do we do? She won't, my mother replied. She's too ashamed. Besides, even if she did, who would believe her? We'll just say she's unstable, that she's lying for attention. But what about the trust fund? Vanessa asked. What if she finds out? I felt ice run through my veins. What trust fund? Ryan looked at me seriously. I recorded this when I overheard them talking earlier. I thought you should know. Apparently, your grandmother left you a substantial trust fund that was supposed to be released to you when you turned 25. Your parents have been the administrators, and according to what I heard, they've been planning to claim you forfeited it by dropping out and losing contact with the family. I stood there, processing this information. My grandmother had left me money? My parents had been hiding it from me? And they were planning to steal it? The anger I'd felt earlier was nothing compared to what I felt now. I looked at my parents, who had both gone very pale. Is this true? I asked quietly. My father started to speak, but I held up my hand. Don't lie. Not anymore. Did my grandmother leave me a trust fund? The silence stretched out. Finally, my mother nodded. Yes, she said. But it had conditions. You were supposed to graduate college. You were supposed to maintain contact with the family. You broke those conditions. What were the exact conditions? I demanded. My father fumbled for words. That's when Professor Mitchell stepped forward again. Actually, I knew your grandmother. She spoke to me several times about her concerns for you, about how your parents were treating you, and I happened to know that the trust fund had no conditions related to education or family contact. It was simply to be released to you when you turned 25, no strings attached. My 25th birthday had been 2 years ago. So you've been stealing from me, I said to my parents. For 2 years, you've been illegally withholding money that was legally mine. It's not stealing, my father tried to argue. We were going to give it to you once you got your life together. Got my life together? I had started a successful business. I had built something real. And they had been sitting on my inheritance the entire time? That's when Ryan spoke up again. I also happen to have recorded Vanessa and your mother discussing how they planned to split the trust fund between them if they could successfully claim you had forfeited it. The crowd gasped. This had gone from family drama to actual fraud. I want the names of the lawyers handling my grandmother's estate, I said coldly. And I want access to those trust fund documents. Now, we don't have to give you anything, my father blustered. Actually, you do, Dr. Bennett said quietly, because if what I'm hearing is true, this is a serious legal matter. And given that this school has just entered into a business relationship with Natalie, we have an interest in ensuring she's treated fairly. Professor Mitchell pulled out his phone. I'm calling Marcus Williams. He's the best estate attorney in Nashville. He'll sort this out. Within 20 minutes, Marcus Williams had arrived at the party. We moved to a private room while he reviewed the recordings Ryan had made and took my statement. Your parents are in serious trouble, he said bluntly. Withholding a trust fund from its rightful beneficiary is a crime. Attempting to claim forfeit under false pretenses is fraud. And if they've already begun dividing the assets between themselves, that's theft. What do? I asked. We confront them. Tonight? With witnesses. We get them to sign documents transferring the full trust fund to you immediately, along with agreements that they will never contact you again. Or, we proceed with criminal charges and a very public lawsuit. The choice is yours. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Let's confront them. We returned to the main party area. Most of the guests had left by now, but my parents and Vanessa were still there, talking urgently with their own lawyer, a man I didn't recognize. Marcus approached them directly. I'm Marcus Williams, representing Natalie. We need to have a conversation about the trust fund left by her grandmother. My parents' lawyer, whose name I learned was Donald, tried to take control. This is neither the time nor the place for this discussion. On the contrary, Marcus said smoothly, this is exactly the time and place. Your clients have been committing fraud. We have recordings of them discussing their plans to steal from their daughter. We have witnesses to their lies and manipulation. And we have clear documentation that Natalie is the sole beneficiary of a trust fund they've been illegally withholding. He placed a thick folder of documents on the table between us. You have 2 options. Sign these documents right now, transferring the full trust fund to Natalie and agreeing to no further contact with her. Or we press criminal charges tomorrow morning, and this entire situation becomes very public. Given how many witnesses have seen tonight's drama, and given how many people are already posting about this on social media, I imagine your reputation in this community will be completely destroyed. Your choice. Donald picked up the documents and read through them quickly. His face grew more serious with each page. They're legitimate, he said quietly to my parents. And enforceable. This is extortion, my father said. No, Marcus corrected. This is consequences. You committed fraud. You're being given an opportunity to make it right privately. If you refuse, the public option is arrest and prosecution. My mother looked at me. Really looked at me. How can you do this to your own family? I met her Chaza steadily. You stopped being my family 5 years ago when you threw me out. I'm just making sure you can't hurt me anymore. We made mistakes, she said desperately. But we're still your parents. Doesn't that mean anything? It used to, I said quietly. It used to mean everything. But you taught me that love is conditional, that I'm only worth caring about if I meet your standards, that my pain and struggles don't matter if they're inconvenient for you. You taught me those lessons very well. Vanessa finally spoke, her voice small. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said those things on the phone. You're not sorry you said them, I corrected. You're sorry I heard them and recorded them. There's a difference. Marcus tapped the documents. We need an answer. Sign, or we proceed with public disclosure and legal action. Donald whispered something to my parents. They had a brief, heated discussion in low voices. Finally, my father picked up the pen. This isn't over, he said as he signed. Yes, it is, I replied. This is exactly as over as it gets. One by one, they signed the documents. My mother, my father, even Vanessa, who had been listed as a secondary beneficiary in some of the original paperwork. Each signature felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. When it was done, Marcus collected the signed papers and made copies for everyone. You'll receive notification when the trust fund transfer is complete. I expect that will happen within the week. My parents stood to leave. My mother paused at the door, looking back at me one last time. I hope you'll be happy, she said. And for a moment, she almost sounded sincere. I already am, I said. I have been for a while now. I just had to learn to find it without you. They left, and and I sat there in the sudden quiet of the conference room. Marcus smiled at me. "How do you feel?" "Free," I said simply. "For the first time in my life, I feel completely free." The trust fund transfer was completed 5 days later. The amount was substantial, more than I'd expected. My grandmother had invested wisely, and the fund had grown significantly over the years. Combined with my business income, I was genuinely wealthy now, but the money wasn't what mattered most. What mattered was that I'd faced the people who had hurt me and refused to let them control my narrative anymore. I'd exposed their lies, protected my interests, and cut them out of my life permanently. The medical school contract came through the following week. Dr. Bennett made a point of telling me that the project was mine based on merit, not pity or drama. My agency's work spoke for itself. My parents never recovered their reputation in their social circle. Word spread quickly about what had happened at Vanessa's graduation party. Their friends distanced themselves, unwilling to associate with people who had treated their own daughter so cruelly. My father's business suffered as partners quietly ended their relationships with him. My mother withdrew from her social clubs, unable to face the judgment. Vanessa completed her medical degree but struggled to find a good residency placement. The recordings and witness statements had made their way through the medical community, and her ethics were questioned. She eventually moved to another state, trying to start fresh where no one knew her story. They had built their lives on appearances and reputation, and when those crumbled, they had nothing left to stand on. As for me, I stood in my expanded office space 6 months later, watching my team work on projects that would have seemed impossible just a year ago. The success felt real now, earned and unshakable. I'd learned that you don't need your family's approval to build a meaningful life. Sometimes the family you deserve is the one you create for yourself. And sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, but simply becoming so successful, so happy, so free that their opinions no longer matter. I'd walked away from them at that graduation party, and I'd never looked back. That was the moment I truly won. Not when I exposed their lies, not when I got my trust fund, not when I signed the medical school contract, but when I realized I didn't need them to validate my worth anymore. I had proven to myself that I was more than the ugly college dropout they'd called me. I was more than their disappointment. I was more than their failure. I was Natalie, business owner, success story, survivor, and I had done it all on my own terms. That's what freedom really means. Not the absence of obstacles, but the presence of choice. The ability to write your own story instead of living the one someone else wrote for you. My parents wanted me to be someone I wasn't. Someone who fit their mold, met their expectations, made them look good at country club dinners. When I couldn't be that person, they threw me away. But in throwing me away, they gave me the greatest gift they never intended to give. They forced me to find out who I really was, who I could become without their voices in my head telling me I wasn't good enough. And who I became was so much better than anything they could have imagined. So yes, I crashed my sister's graduation party. I exposed my family's lies in front of everyone they knew. I forced them to give me the inheritance they'd tried to steal. Some people might call that revenge. I call it justice. And it felt absolutely incredible.